An End by Christina Rossetti. Read for LibriVox.org by Matthew Royal. Love, strong as death, is dead. Come, let us make his bed among the dying flowers, a green turf at his head, and a stone at his feet, whereon we may sit in the quiet evening hours. He was born in the spring, and died before the harvesting. On the last warm summer day he left us. He would not stay for autumn twilight cold and gray. Sit we by his grave, and sing, he is gone away. To few chords and sad and low sing we so, be our eyes fixed on the grass shadow veiled as the years pass, while we think of all that was in the long ago. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
La Canción del Pirata, por José de Espronceda. Leído para LibriVox.org por Vanessa Escrivá. Con 10 cañones por banda, viento en popa a toda vela, no corta el mar sino vuela un velero bergantín. Bajé el pirata que llaman por su bravura el temido, en todo mar conocido del uno al otro confín. La luna en el mar riela, en la lona gime el viento, y alza en blando movimiento olas de plata y azul. Y ve el capitán pirata cantando alegre en la popa, hacia un lado, al otro Europa, y allá su frente Estambul. Navega, velero mío, sin temor, que ni enemigo navío, ni tormenta, ni bonanza, tu rumba a torcer alcanza ni a sujetar tu valor. 20 presas hemos hecho a despecho del inglés, y han rendido sus pendones 100 naciones a mis pies. Que es mi barco mi tesoro, que es mi Dios la libertad, mi ley la fuerza y el viento, mi única patria la mar. Allá muevan feroz guerra ciegos reyes por un palmo más de tierra, que yo tengo aquí por mío, cuanto abarca el mar bravío a quien nadie impuso leyes. Y no hay playa, sea cualquiera, ni bandera de esplendor, que no sienta mi derecho y dé pecho a mi valor. Que es mi barco mi tesoro, que es mi Dios la libertad, mi ley la fuerza y el viento, mi única patria la mar. A la voz de «¡Barco viene!» es de ver cómo vira y se previene a todo trapo a escapar, que yo soy el rey del mar y mi furia es de temer. En las presas yo divido lo cogido por igual, solo quiero por riqueza la belleza sin rival. Que es mi barco mi tesoro, que es mi Dios la libertad, mi ley la fuerza y el viento, mi única patria la mar. Sentenciado estoy a muerte, yo me río, no me abandone la suerte, y al mismo que me condena colgaré de alguna antena, quizá en su propio navío. Y si caigo, ¿qué es la vida? Por perdida ya la di, cuando el yugo del esclavo como un bravo sacudí. Que es mi barco mi tesoro, que es mi Dios la libertad, mi ley la fuerza y el viento, mi única patria la mar. Son mi música mejor aquilones, el estrépito y temblor de los cables sacudidos, del negro mar los bramidos y el rugir de mis cañones. Y del trueno al son violento, y del viento al rebramar, yo me duermo sosegado, arrullado por el mar. Que es mi barco mi tesoro, que es mi Dios la libertad, mi ley la fuerza y el viento, mi única patria la mar. Fin del poema. Esta grabación es del dominio público.
Corruption by Henry Vaughan. Read for LibriVox.org by Cecilia Pryor. Sure it was so. Man in those early days was not all stone and earth. He shined a little, and by those weak rays had some glimpse of his birth. He saw heaven o'er his head, and knew from where he came condemned hither. And as first love draws strongest, so from thence his mind sure progressed thither. Things here were strange unto him, sweat and till, all was a thorn or weed, nor did those last, but, like himself, died still as soon as they did seed. They seemed to quarrel with him, for that act that felled him foiled them all. He drew the curse upon the world, and cracked the whole frame with his fall. This made him long for home, as loath to stay with murmurers and foes. He sighed for Eden, and would often say, "Ah, what bright days were those!" Nor was heaven cold unto him, for each day the valley or the mountain afforded visits, and still paradise lay in some green shade or fountain. Angels lay leisure here, each bush and cell, each oak and highway knew them. Walk but the fields, or sit down at some well, and he was sure to view them. Almighty love, where art thou now? Mad man sits down and freezeth on. He raves and swears to stir nor fire nor fan, but bids the thread be spun. I see thy curtains are close drawn, thy bow looks dim too in the cloud. Sin triumphs still, and man is sunk below the centre and his shroud. All's in deep sleep and night, thick darkness lies and hatcheth o'er thy people. But hark, what trumpet's that? What angel cries, arise, thrust in thy sickle? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alan Davis Drake at paintedricecakes.org. Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air, only from the lone line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched sand, listen. You hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return at the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound of thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once, too, at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here, as on the darkling plain swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. End of poem. Recorded by Alan Davis Drake in Long Branch, New Jersey, July 1st, 2006.
Each in His Own Tongue by William Herbert Caruth. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Robert Garrison. Fire mist and a planet, a crystal and a cell, a jellyfish and a saurian, and caves where the cavemen dwell. Then a sense of law and beauty, and a face turned from the clod. Some call it evolution, and others call it God. A haze on the far horizon, the infinite tender sky, the ripe rich tint of the cornfields, and the wild geese sailing high, and all over the upland and lowland, the charm of the golden rod. Some of us call it autumn, and others call it God. Like tides on a crescent sea beach, when the moon is new and thin, into our hearts' high yearnings come welling and surging in. Come from the mystic ocean, whose rim no foot has trod. Some of us call it longing, and others call it God. A picket frozen on duty, a mother starved for her brood, Socrates drinking the hemlock, and Jesus on the rood. And millions who, humble and nameless, the straight hard pathways plod. Some call it consecration, and others call it God. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information and to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Linda Liu. The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes. The wind was a torrent of darkness among the gusty trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas. The road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, and the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The highwayman came riding up to the old inn door. He'd a French cocked hat on his forehead, a bunch of lace at his chin, a coat of the claret velvet, and breeches of brown doeskin. They fitted with never a wrinkle. His boots were up to the thigh, and he rode with a jeweled twinkle, his pistol butts a twinkle, his rapier hilt a twinkle, under the jeweled sky. Over the cobbles he clattered and clashed in the dark inn yard. He tapped with his whip on the shutters, but all was locked and barred. He whistled a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long black hair. And dark in the dark old inn yard, a stable wicket creaked, where Tim, the ostler, listened. His face was white and peaked. His eyes were hollows of madness, his hair like moldy hay. But he loved the landlord's daughter, the landlord's red-lipped daughter. Dumb as a dog he listened, and he heard the robber say, "One kiss, my pony sweetheart. I'm after a prize tonight, but I shall be back with the yellow gold before the morning light. Yet, if they press me sharply and harry me through the day, then look for me by moonlight, watch for me by moonlight. I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way." He rose upright in the stirrups. He scarce could reach her hand, but she loosened her hair in the casement. His face burnt like a brand, as a black cascade of perfume came tumbling over his breast, and he kissed its waves in the moonlight. Oh, sweet black waves in the moonlight. Then he tugged at his rein in the moonlight, and galloped away to the west. He did not come in the dawning, he did not come at noon, and out of the tawny sunset, before the rise of the moon, when the road was a gypsy's ribbon, looping the purple moor, a red coat troop came marching, marching, marching. King George's men came marching up to the old inn door. They said no word to the landlord, they drank his ale instead, but they gagged his daughter and bound her to the foot of her narrow bed. Two of them knelt at her casement, with muskets at their side. There was death at every window, and hell at one dark window, for Bess could see through her casement the road that he would ride. They had tied her up to attention with many a sniggering jest. They had bound a musket beside her, with a barrel beneath her breast. "Now keep good watch," and they kissed her. She heard the doomed man say, "Look for me by moonlight, watch for me by moonlight. I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way." She twisted her hands behind her, but all the knots held good. She wreathed her hands till her fingers were wet with sweat or blood. They stretched and strained in the darkness, and the hours crawled by like years, till now on the stroke of midnight, cold on the stroke of midnight, the tip of one finger touched it. The trigger, at least, was hers. The tip of one finger touched it. She strove no more for the rest. Up, she stood up to attention, with a muzzle beneath her breast. She would not risk their hearing, she would not strive again, for the road lay bare in the moonlight, blank and bare in the moonlight, and the blood of her veins in the moonlight throbbed to her love's refrain. Doth, Doth, had they heard it? The horse hoofs ringing clear. Doth, Doth. In the distance? Were they deaf that they did not hear? Down the ribbon of moonlight, over the brow of the hill, the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The redcoats looked to their priming. She stood up, straight and still. In the frosty silence, in the echoing night. Nearer he came and nearer. Her face was like a light. Her eyes grew wide for a moment. She drew one last deep breath. Then her finger moved in the moonlight. Her musket shattered the moonlight, shattered her breast in the moonlight, and warned him with her death. He turned. He spurred to the west. He did not know who stood, bound with her head o'er the musket, drenched with her own red blood. Not till the dawn he heard it. His face grew grey to hear how Bess, the landlord's daughter, the landlord's black-eyed daughter, had watched for her love in the moonlight, and died in the darkness there. Back he spurred like a madman, shouting a curse to the sky, with a white road smoking behind him, and his rapier brandished high. Blood-red were his spurs in the golden noon, wine-red was his velvet coat, when they shot him down on the highway, down like a dog on the highway, and he lay in his blood on the highway, with a bunch of lace at his throat. And still of a winter's night they say, when the wind is in the trees, when the moon is a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas, when the road is a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, a highwayman comes riding, riding, riding. A highwayman comes riding up to the old inn door. Over the cobbles he clatters and clangs in the dark inn yard. He taps with his whip on the shutters, but all is locked and barred. He whistles a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long black hair. This is the end of the Highwayman.
How Doth the Little Busy Bee by Isaac Watts. Read for LibriVox.org by Kristen Hughes. How doth the little busy bee improve each shining hour, and gather honey all the day from every opening flower! How skilfully she builds her cell, how neat she spreads the wax, and labours hard to store it well with the sweet food she makes. In works of labour or of skill I would be busy too, for Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. In books or work or healthful play let my first years be passed, that I may give for every day some good account at last. End of poem.
How Doth the Little Crocodile by Lewis Carroll. Read for LibriVox.org by Jeff Bailey. June 23rd, 2006. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Knee Deep in June. A poem by James Whitcomb Riley. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Eugene Pinto. Climber53.com. Tell you what I like the best, long about knee deep in June, 'bout the time strawberries melts on the vine some afternoon. Like to just get out and rest, and not work at nothing else. Orchards where I'd ruther be, needn't fence it in for me. Just the whole sky overhead, and the whole earth underneath. Sorta so's a man can breathe, like he ort, and kinda has elbow room to carelessly sprawl out lengthways on the grass, where the shadder's thick and soft as the kivers on the bed mother fixes in the loft, allus when they's company. Just a sort of lazin' there, so lazy at you peek and peer through the wavin' leaves above, like a feller 'at's in love, and don't know it, ner don't care. Everything you hear and see got some sort of interest. Maybe find a bluebird's nest tucked up there conveniently, for the boy it's apt to be up some other apple tree. Watch the swallers scootin' past, 'bout as peart as you could ast, the bob-white raise and whiz where some other's whistle is. Catch a shadder down below, and look up to find the crow, a hawk away up there, 'parently froze in the air. Hear the old hen squawk and squat over ever' chick she's got, suddint like, and she knows where that 'ere hawk is, well as you. You just bet your life she do, eyes a-glitterin' like glass, waitin' till he makes a pass. Pee-wee's wingin', to express my opinion is second class. Yet you'll hear 'em more or less. Sapsucks gettin' down to biz, weedin' out the lonesomeness. Mr. Blue Jay, full o' sass, in them baseball clothes o' his, sportin' round the orchard jest like he owned the premises. Sun out in the fields can sizz, but flat on your back, I guess, in the shades where glory is. That's just what I'd like to do, steady, for a year or two. Plague, if that ain't sumpin' in, work it kinda goes again, my convictions, long about, here in June especially, under some old apple tree, jest a restin' through and through. I could get along without nothin' else at all to do, only just a wishin' you was a gettin' there like me, and June was eternity. Lay out there and try to see just how lazy you can be. Tumble round and souse your head in the clover bloom, or pull your straw hat across your eyes and peek through it at the skies. Thinkin' of old chums that's dead, maybe smilin' back at you, in betwixt the beautiful clouds of gold and white and blue. Month a man can railly love, June, you know, I'm talkin' of. March ain't never nothin' new, April's altogether too brash for me, and May I jest 'bominate its promises. Little hints of sunshine and green around the timberland, a few blossoms and a few chip birds and a sprout or two, drap asleep and it turns in for daylight and snows again. But when June comes, clear my throat with wild honey, wrench my hair in the dew and hold my coat, whoop out loud and throw my hat. June wants me and I'm to spare. Spread them shadders anywhere. I'll get down and waller there, and oblige to you at that. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information and to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Lord's Prayer, Matthew 6, verses 9 to 13, from the King James Version, read by Esther and Mike Lockwood. The Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debt, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
My Madonna, by Robert W. Service. Read for LibriVox.org by Dave Ranson. I hailed me a woman from the street, shameless but oh so fair. I bade her sit in the modeled seat, and I painted her sitting there. I hid all trace of her heart unclean, I painted a babe at her breast. I painted her as she might have been, if the worst had been the best. She laughed at my picture and went away. Then came, with a knowing nod, a connoisseur, and I heard him say, "'Tis Mary, the Mother of God." So I painted a halo round her hair, and I sold her and took my fee, and she hangs in the church of St. Hilaire, where you and all may see. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
This is a LibriVox recording. Next Morning, a Yorkshire dialect poem written by John Hartley. I'll never get druffin' no more. The last time is this, and that's true, for me bones is all shaking and sore, through the crown of me head to me shoe. My skin it's all covered with marks, Some's blue and some's black and some's red. Yeah, I cannot think how my head works, and it feels just as heavy as lead. I cannot tell how I got fresh, for I didn't sup how much drink. My stomach gets weakly, I guess. Couldn't be no else, I think, for I'd nobbut a gallon of beer, couple of whiskies, a rum. Happened too, for I'm not very clear. Money I knew I had some. That's all, though I'd happen a drop, late on at I know not about. But landlord, he told me to stop, when the brass in me pocket ran out. I remember being chucked in the street, at closing time, nothing no more. My mate set me up on my feet, and propped me again a house door. All the rest of last night is a blank. I wonder who put me to bed. Sure, I don't know who to thank, and I cannot right think for me head. Besides, I feel terrible sick. This drinking isn't all bliss. I expect I be seedy at Wick. It's taught me a lesson as this.
This recording is in the public domain.
Nobody Loses All the Time by E. Cummings. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Davis Drake. July 4th, 2006. Long Branch, New Jersey. PaintedRiceCakes.org. Nobody loses all the time. I had an uncle named Saul who was a born failure, and nearly everyone said he should have gone into vaudeville. Perhaps because my Uncle Saul could sing "Mecan, he was a diver" on Xmas Eve like hell itself, which may or may not account for the fact that my Uncle Saul indulged in that possibly most inexcusable of all, to use a highfalutin phrase, luxuries, that is, or to, wit farming. And be it needlessly added, my Uncle Saul's farm failed, because the chickens ate the vegetables. So my Uncle Saul had a chicken farm, till the skunks ate the chickens, when my Uncle Saul had a skunk farm. But the skunks caught cold and died, and so my Uncle Saul imitated the skunks in a subtle manner, or by drowning himself in a water tank. But someone who had given my Uncle Saul a Victrola and records while he lived presented to him upon the auspicious occasion of his decease a scrumptious, not to mention splendiferous, funeral with tall boys in black gloves and flowers and everything. And I remember we all cried like the Missouri when my Uncle Saul's coffin lurched, because somebody pressed a button. And down went my Uncle Saul, and started a worm farm. End of poem.
Old-Fashioned Roses. A poem by James Whitcomb Riley. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Eugene Pinto. Climber53.com. They ain't no style about 'em, and they're sort o' pale and faded, yet the doorway here without 'em would be lonesomer and shaded, with a good deal blacker shutter than the morning glories makes, and the sunshine would look sadder for their good old-fashioned sakes. I like 'em 'cause they sort o' make a feller like 'em, and I tell you when I find a bunch out where the sun can strike 'em, it allus sets me thinkin' o' the ones that used to grow and peek in through the chinkin' o' the cabin, don't you know? And then I think o' Mother, and how she used to love 'em when they wasn't any other, 'less she found 'em up above 'em, and her eyes afore she shut 'em whispered with a smile and said, We must pick a bunch and put 'em in her hand when she was dead. But as I was a-sayin', they ain't no style about 'em, very gaudy or displayin', but I wouldn't be without 'em, 'cause I'm happier in these posies and the hollyhocks and sich than the hummin' bird at noses in the roses of the rich. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain, so you folks can just have at it.
The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Read for LibriVox by Gemma Blythe. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as there, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. This recording is in the public domain.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kristen Luoma, greenkri.com. Sir Launcelot and Queen Guinevere. A Fragment by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Like souls that balance joy and pain, with tears and smiles from heaven again, the maiden spring upon the plain came in a sunlit fall of rain. In crystal vapor everywhere, blue isles of heaven laughed between, and fair in forest deeps unseen, the topmost elm tree gathered green from draughts of balmy air. Sometimes the linnet piped his song, sometimes the throstle whistled strong, sometimes the sparhawk wheeled along, hushed all the groves from fear of wrong. By grassy capes, with fuller sound, in curves the yellowing river ran, and drooping chestnut buds began to spread into the perfect fan above the teeming ground. Then, in the boyhood of the year, Sir Launcelot and Queen Guinevere rode through the coverts of the deer, with blissful treble ringing clear. She seemed a part of joyous spring. A gown of grass-green silk she wore, buckled with golden clasps before. A light green tuft of plumes she bore, closed in a golden ring. Now on some twisted ivy net, now by some tinkling rivulet, in mosses mixed with violet, her cream-white mule his pastern set. And fleeter now she skimmed the plains than she whose elfin prancer springs by night to eerie warblings, when all the glimmering moorland rings with jingling bridle reins. As she fled fast through sun and shade, the happy winds upon her played, blowing the ringlet from the braid. She looked so lovely as she swayed the rein with dainty fingertips. A man had given all other bliss
and all his worldly worth for this, to waste his whole heart in one kiss upon her perfect lips. End of poem.
Sonnets from the Portuguese by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Number 12. Read for LibriVox.org by Tina Tilney. Indeed, this very love which is my boast, and which when rising up from breast to brow doth crown me with ruby larginelle, to draw men's eyes and prove the inner cost, this love even, all my worth to the uttermost, I should not love withal, unless that thou hadst set me an example, shown me how, when first thine earnest eyes with mine were crossed, and love called love. And thus I cannot speak of love even as good thing of my own. Thy soul hath snatched up mine, all faint and weak, and placed it by thee on a golden throne, and that I love, O soul, we must be meek, is by thee only, whom I love alone. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet 14 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Read for LibriVox by Alice Atwater. If thou must love me, let it be for naught, except for love's sake only. Do not say, I love her for her smile, her look, her way of speaking gently, for a trick of thought that falls in well with mine, and certes brought a sense of pleasant ease on such a day. For these things in themselves, beloved, may be changed, or change for thee, and love so wrought may be unwrought so. Neither love me for thine own dear pities, wiping my cheeks dry. A creature might forget to weep, who bore thy comfort long, and lose thy love thereby. But love me for love's sake, that evermore thou mayest love on, through love's eternity. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Topsy-Turvy World by William Bridie Rands. Read for LibriVox.org by Kristen Hughes. If the butterfly courted the bee, and the owl the porcupine, if churches were built in the sea, and 3 times 1 was 9, if the pony rode his master, if the buttercups ate the cows, if the cats had the dire disaster to be worried, sir, by the mouse, if mamma, sir, sold the baby to a gypsy for half a crown, if a gentleman, sir, was a lady, the world would be upside down. If any or all of these wonders should ever come about, I should not consider them blunders, for I should be inside out. Ba, ba, Blackwool, have you any sheep? Yes, sir, a packful. Creep, mouse, creep. 24 little maids hanging out the pie. Out jumped the honey pot. Guy Fawkes, Guy! Cross-latch, sit and spin the fire. When the pie was opened, the bird was on the briar. End of poem.
Two Loves by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Read for LibriVox.org by Esther and
Mike
Lockwood. Two Loves. One said, Lo, I would walk hand-clasped with thee, adown the ways of joy and sunlit slopes of earthly song in happiest vagrancy, to pluck the blossom of 1,000 hopes. Let us together drain the wide world's cup, with gladness brim it up.
And one said, I would pray to go with thee. When sorrow claims thee, I would fence thy heart. With mine against all anguish I would be, the comforter and healer of thy smart. And I would count it all the wide world's gain, to spare or share thy pain.
End of poem. This poem is in the public domain.